Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the campus here at Nova Community College. My name is Jeff Danick. I'm the Executive Director of the Poses JCC, just less than a mile down the road, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome you to our annual Yom HaShoah commemoration event. Ron Halber, as always, took all of my best lines for the welcome. So I'll be delivering his concluding remarks at the end of the event. This event we used to do every year, both in Virginia and in Maryland, and I know that now since COVID we're on an every other year cadence, but it's really, really important to all of us in the Greater Washington Jewish community to mark this event, to honor our survivors, and to come together as a large community and come together as a people. That couldn't be more crucial than it is right now. So I am really grateful that all of you took the time today to come. I'm grateful for the survivors who are still with us, and we're going to hear from some of them today. And I'm grateful to the JCRC for taking the lead on this event. Thank you all very much for coming today.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Budorf, JCRC Board President. It is a distinct privilege to be here today among Holocaust survivors and their families, as well as second, third, and even some fourth-generation survivors. Each of you is a living testament to resilience, hope, and the promise to pass down the lessons of the Holocaust to future generations. As a Virginia resident, I'm thrilled that the JCRC could bring this program back to the Commonwealth for the first time since 2019. This annual program reflects our sacred obligation to honor Holocaust victims, survivors, and liberators in the DMV, and to remember the 6 million Jews and millions of others who were murdered by the Nazis. This work occurs year-round through programs like Magid, which has trained a total of 90 children of survivors, or 2Gs, to share their families' Holocaust narratives with students. Our Magid graduates have delivered dozens of presentations to approximately 4,000 students and teachers so far this school year. A feature article highlighting the program and profiling the journey of a recent graduate will be published tomorrow in the Montgomery Banner, one of the region's fastest growing publications. We also work closely with elected officials throughout the region to advocate for enhanced Holocaust education and awareness. Here in Virginia, we have an excellent relationship with Governor Abigail Spanberger, and will continue partnering with the administration to preserve Holocaust-related activities and curriculum. Governor Spanberger was unable to be here in person today, but she did record this brief video message to share with us.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Virginia. I am truly sorry I cannot be with you in person today, but I did want to lend my voice to this day of remembrance. Yom HaShoah calls on all of us to honor the memories of the millions of men, women, and children who were murdered in the Holocaust. Telling their stories honestly is how we honor the victims, acknowledge the past, and protect the future. For more than 4 decades, the JCRC of Greater Washington has done exactly that, bringing together Holocaust survivors, their families, friends, and neighbors to bear witness and ensure their stories are never lost. That work matters. Anti-Semitism is rising in our communities, our Commonwealth, our country, and across the globe, and we must all confront the scourge of anti-Semitism head-on. It is important that all of us, people of all backgrounds and religions, speak clearly against religious violence, dehumanization of our neighbors, and the politics of cruelty and hate. As governor, I will always stand with Virginia's Jewish community in moments of celebration and joy, and in solemn remembrances like this one. Thank you to all of you for attending, and thank you to the JCRC of Greater Washington for never letting us forget. I do hope to see you all soon.
Hi, I'm Governor Wes Moore, and it's an honor to commemorate Yom HaShoah with you. So today is about remembrance and our own responsibility. We remember the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust because time does not carry memory forward on its own. People do. It's survivors who have carried stories across generations so they are not lost to us, or our children, or our grandchildren. And that's because the point of today is because it's our responsibility. We must work together to protect our history and condemn those who would try to deny it. And we can work together to be part of a change that we hope to see in the world, especially right here in Maryland. In this moment, we know it's our obligation to work together to realize the full promise of Tikkun Olam, to build a future where hate and denial and conspiracy theories will find no refuge, a future where every person can feel safe in their community and where they worship, a future where we unapologetically confront and condemn anti-Semitism and persecution wherever it arises. These are not talking points for Maryland. They're our governing philosophy. And we're fully committed to stomping out anti-Semitism in all of its forms. We must continue to uplift the voices of survivors while we have the privilege of them living amongst us. It's the moral responsibility of our generation and our children's generation to never forget. These are difficult times, but we'll go through them together because the Moore-Miller administration will always support Maryland's Jewish community. Today, we stand together and we say, never again.
We are a community that is filled with words, but there are times when we lose that tool, one of our most sacred ones. And I was thinking about that in the context of where we are in the cycle of our Torah readings, that which we've been doing not in any one synagogue, but in every synagogue all around the world. Aaron's sons, the high priest, his sons Nadav and Avihu, die suddenly and violently after bringing an Eshazarah, a strange fire, to the altar, and Aaron is devastated. And in the tragic aftermath, the Torah tells us simply, Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. But that silence is not emptiness and it's not indifference, it's far more profound. It's the quiet of a soul standing at the edge of unbearable loss. Aaron, the high priest, the man of words, the man of ritual, has no words. And the Torah, so sparing in its language, chooses to preserve not a speech, not a protest, not a prayer, but silence, because sometimes that's the answer. And yet our tradition does not end there, because we are a religion of story. We tell, we remember, we pass down. At the Passover Seder that you all sat together a week ago, we're commanded not just to recall Yetziat Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt, but to tell our narrative, to shape our memories so they don't disappear. And that tension between silence and speech becomes especially powerful when we bring it to the topic, to the event, to the horror of the Shoah, of the Holocaust. How do we speak of it? How do we put into words the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, the obliteration of communities? We're commanded to remember, to tell, to teach, and yet even within that we still feel that silence at the center. And like Aaron, we find ourselves before a loss that defies explanation. But Aaron's silence is not a resolution, rather it's a recognition. He doesn't explain what happened, he doesn't try and justify it. He simply expresses in his own way that there are things beyond our comprehension, and he suggests there are no easy answers. But, and, silence is not enough. confronting the Shoah, we also need to find ways to make it bearable and go forward. Because if we remain simply in silence like Aaron did, then memory fades. And after catastrophe, we not only mourn and tell of those who died, we tell the stories of those who lived to insist that every person was, as tradition teaches us, an entire world. And that's why survivor testimony is some of the most sacred language we can use, because we refuse to let silence have the final word. Telling our story is not a contradiction of silence, it's a continuation. So we live in both spaces. We enter the silence, acknowledging that we can't explain what we don't understand, and then we step forward, carrying fragile, partial, and vital and inspiring stories. Life must continue, and so too with the Shoah. We hold the silence, but we also have to speak. We light candles, we read names, we tell stories, we build towards the future. In the Torah, Aaron's silence becomes a form of testimony, and our stories become a response to that silence. Considering the Shoah, may we have the courage to enter that silence not as an escape, but as an act of reverence. And from within that silence, may we always find the strength to speak, to tell, and to carry forward the stories of those who are no longer here, ensuring that their lives and not only their deaths remain part of the ongoing story of our people. May their blessings and may their memories and these stories forever be a blessing. Amen.
Good afternoon. I'm Ellen Blaylock, co-chair of JCRC's Virginia Holocaust Committee. My co-chair, Ira Bartfield, and I welcome you to this year's Yom HaShoah commemoration. Zachor, remember. Shamar, guard and preserve. Family, community, heritage, destiny. On Yom HaShoah, we recall the terror and trauma, the pain and loss of the past. But in a circle of light, as the flame of memory burns bright, we heed the mitzvah to choose life. Our memorial candles signify our pledge to remember, to preserve, and to write a different history, liberation from hatred and oppression. Our precious survivors and their families represent the wide diversity of Holocaust-era Jews who were victimized not for what they did, but for who they were. The Nazi net spread across Europe, to the former Soviet Union, to North Africa. Different lives, each marked for death, but not all died. Am Yisrael Chai. The survivors and their descendants who are here today for this memorial candlelighting teach us their families' life lessons as we, their witnesses, commit to carrying their memories and passing them on. We open our hearts to those whose stories we don't yet know. We want to hear them. We need to learn. And we welcome all of them in our widest embrace of our common humanity. One by one, each an inspiration and a bridge to generations still to come. We mourn even as we move the world to acknowledge the sanctity and dignity of each person. Our sacred text echoes within us, shun evil and do good, seek peace and pursue it. On Yom HaShoah, we transform memory into a raging fire for justice that fulfills our promise to the past and honors our hope for the future.
I, Daniel Tabak, am now almost 92 years old. I have experienced at the age of 5 up to the age of 11 the war, the World War in Poland, Russia, and then later in other countries in Europe. So I am thankful for this chance of reading my recollections that I wrote up, and I thank you for giving me this occasion to express myself and express my memories.
I'm Semyon Belkin, born in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, in 1934. And here is my wife, Valentina Belkina, born in 1937 in the Ukrainian town Vinnytsia. We both are Holocaust survivors. The war made us strong, honest. Maybe because of that reason, we lived together over 70 years. And now my wife will share her reminiscences about the war. Thank you.
My war began when I was a little girl, only 3.5, but I remember everything. The German tanks entering my nice Ukrainian town Vinnytsia, the cattle train which took my mama and her 3 daughters away from my native home, air raids, explosions of bombs. Up to now, I feel that awful sense of constant hunger and large cotton field where mama and her girls worked all the day to get half a pound of rice. My grandparents and my little sister died there from hunger. All members of my father's family, they were 12 men, women and children were executed by fascists in Vinnytsia in 1941. But I survived and lived a long life. I graduated from the university, worked many years as a teacher. I have 2 daughters, 2 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. One of my grandchildren child finished school and with a golden medal, and now he studies at the Moscow University. I do not doubt that he will become a great scientist. I always think the war took away more than 6 million Jews, including 1.5 million of children. They were clever, talented, and could give the birth to millions of clever and talented children and grandchildren. So the world lost. The world lost millions of intellectuals, scientists, writers, artists. That is why I hate the war and wish all the people of next generation never know what the war is.
Hello, my name is Shelley Klein, and I'm a member of the Generations After. I'm honored to light a candle in memory of those who perished in the Shoah and also those who survived. I'm the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors and also the granddaughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. My family on both sides were from small towns in Poland. My mother was 11 years old when war broke out in 1939. At first, the Germans came to her town, Tarnogrod, and shortly thereafter, the Germans left and the Soviets took over. And sometime after that, the Soviet soldiers informed the townspeople that they were leaving and the Germans were returning. Having already seen what the Germans were capable of, my mother, her parents, and her 2 sisters decided to follow the Soviet soldiers into Soviet-occupied territory. They were unable to convince the rest of their family members, however, to come with them. And some months later, however, having heard from family members back home that life under the Germans was not so terrible after all, my grandfather decided to sign up with the Soviet government to return back home to their hometown in Poland. Because of that action, though, the family was identified as enemies of the Soviet Union and imprisoned in a Soviet labor camp in the Urals near Siberia. Ironically, it was this imprisonment, with conditions as harsh and difficult as they were, that saved their lives. The rest of my mother's family, who remained in Tarnogrod, and there were some 80 strong, were murdered there by gunfire in 1942. My father's story is somewhat similar in that he survived by fleeing to the Soviet Union as well. Although his father and younger siblings did not feel able to do so, he and 1 younger brother decided to take this action with their father's blessing. My father and uncle were in the Soviet Union illegally, however, and were eventually captured and sent to a gulag, where they spent a good portion of the war. The conditions in the gulag were truly gruesome, but at least they survived. The rest of my father's family were murdered in Treblinka. My mother and father arrived at the same DP camp in Austria after the war, where they met and married, and where I was born. With the help of relatives who had emigrated many years before the war, we were able to come to the United States in 1951. My father passed away in 2007 at the age of 90, and I'm happy to say that my mother is still living. Today, I pay tribute to my family and all the families who suffered as a result of the Shoah.
Shalom uvracha. My name is Edith Evelyn Crew Alexander, and I am the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. My mother, Lily Reuben Crew, was imprisoned in Auschwitz, while my father, Paul Crew, survived Mauthausen. I am also a second-generation Magid speaker. Magid is one of the programs sponsored by the JCRC to combat Holocaust denial. My job as a speaker is to go out to the schools and tell the real and true story of what my parents went through during the Holocaust. I light a candle today in memory of my parents and in gratitude for their refusal to die at the hands of the Nazis. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Liss. I'm lighting a candle today in honor of my grandmother and grandfather who both survived the Holocaust. I'm also doing it on behalf of my entire family who has been forever affected by the Holocaust and works very hard every day, every year to make sure that the memory stays alive and people don't forget.
We welcome Lior Intrator to light the 6th candle on behalf of Sasan Hassan.
As we mark Holocaust Remembrance Day this year, we reflect not only on the immense loss and suffering, but also on the enduring strength of family. In the darkest of times, it was the bonds between parents and children, siblings and loved ones that became a source of courage, identity, and survival. Families held onto one another, physically when possible, and spiritually when separated, preserving hope, values, and memory against all odds. This year, that message feels especially close to home. In the aftermath of October 7th, we have witnessed again how the strength of family, both our own and our extended Jewish family around the globe, can hold us together in moments of fear, grief, and uncertainty. We have seen communities come together, support one another, and reaffirm the deep connections that define us. Today, we honor that resilience across generations. We remember that even in the face of unimaginable cruelty and the failure of humanity to combat anti-Semitism that resulted in so many physical attacks, including the murder of our Sarah and Yaron, Zichronam Livracha, in May 2025, still the strength, unity of family can sustain life, dignity, and hope. May their legacy continue to guide us, reminding us of the power of unity, relationship, and compassion, now more than ever. Remember the Pirkei Avot saying, "It is not your duty to finish the work, but you are not at liberty to neglect it." Let's all combat together the rise of anti-Semitism.
I invite all Holocaust survivors to stand up if they would like to. We take this oath, we take it in the shadow of flames whose tongues scar the soul of our people. We vow in the name of our dead parents and children, we vow with our sadness hidden. Our faith renewed, we vow we shall never let the sacred memory of our perished 6 million brethren be forgotten or erased. We saw them hungry, in fear. We saw them in the loneliness of night. We saw them at the threshold of death, true to their faith. We received their silence in silence. We merged their tears with ours. We are the remaining witnesses of deportations, executions, mass graves, death camps, mute prayers, hidden souls, and cries of revolt. The young, the old, the rich, and the poor. The ghetto fighters, the partisans, the scholars, the messianic dreamers, the tradesmen and businessmen, the Hasidim and Mishnachdim, like a cloud we saw them vanish. We take this oath, vision becomes word, to be handed down from father to son, from mother to daughter, handed down from generation to generation. Zachor, remember what the Nazi murderers and their accomplices did to our Jewish people. Remember them with rage and contempt. Remember what an indifferent world did to us and to itself. We also must remember the good deeds of the righteous Gentiles. In 1981, we took this oath in Israel near the Kotel. There we handed down a legacy to our children in the shadows of the flames of 6 symbolic candles. Tonight, at this assembly, we reaffirm our oath in the shadows of the flames of these 6 Yortzeit candles, honoring the memory of our 6 million, Achenu B'nai Yisrael, our Jewish brethren. We take this oath, our memory will become words of history of the Holocaust to be handed down from generation to generation. Midor ledor, unsere Keneshim, mir fehlen euch keinmal nicht vergessen.
All second-generation children of Holocaust survivors are invited to stand as they are able and to recite together. We, who are your sons and daughters, belong to a generation in which every attempt was made for us never to exist. We, who represent our victory and your triumph over evil of unthinkable dimensions, accept the responsibility to preserve and protect the legacy of the Holocaust. We pledge to commemorate. We pledge to educate. We pledge to always remember. We pledge to you, our mothers and fathers, who suffered in ways words cannot describe, that our commitment is an everlasting commitment for this generation and for every generation to come. We dedicate this pledge to our beloved grandmothers and grandfathers who never lived to see us. We pledge to always remember who we are, where we came from, and also the traumas our grandparents endured and survived. Educate people of other ethnic, religious, and cultural groups about our grandparents' experiences. Commit to use lessons of the Holocaust to support justice, tolerance, peace, kindness, compassion, and accept survivors' memories and to pass them on to future generations.
All third-generation children of Holocaust survivors are invited to stand as they are able and recite together. We who are your grandchildren will carry on the survivors' legacy to prove to ourselves and to others that we can carry on your victory, as well as to memorialize those loved ones who perished in the Holocaust. We pledge to always remember who we are, where we came from, and also the traumas our grandparents endured and survived. Educate people of other ethnic, religious, and cultural groups about our grandparents' experiences. Commit to use lessons of the Holocaust to support justice, tolerance, peace, kindness, and compassion, and accept survivors' memories and to pass them on to future generations.
Recognizing the rise of anti-Semitism and other forms of hate across the United States and the world, and remembering those who were murdered in the Holocaust. Believing that the spread of bias and prejudice can be stopped and fought. Emphasizing that a unique opportunity now exists to reverse this pattern. I pledge to work to fight hate, bias, violence, and discrimination. I commit to using the lessons of the Holocaust to support justice, tolerance, peace, kindness, and compassion. I commit to living a proud Jewish life in the memory of the 6 million who did not have that chance and to preserve our collective Jewish future.
Please rise in body or in spirit for the memorial prayer. El malei rachamim, shochen b'meromim, hametzeh menucha nechona, על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את כל הנשמות של 6 מיליוני היהודים חללי השואה שנהרגו, שנשחטו, שנשרפו ושנשפו על קידוש השם בידי המרצחים הגרמנים ועוזריהם משאר העמים. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם, אדוני ונחלתם, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם, ויעמדו לגורלם לקץ הימים, ונאמר Amen. May the God of mercy shelter them in the shelter of God's wings for eternity, and bind their souls in the bond of life. The Almighty is their inheritance. May the Garden of Eden be their resting place, and may they stand for their destiny in the end of days. And let us say, Amen.
Good afternoon. I'm Ronald Paul, the co-chair of Montgomery County, Yom HaShoah. It's my honor to introduce and welcome Irene Fogel-Weiss. Irene was born in 1930 in Czechoslovakia, which is now Ukraine, where she was born. When Nazi Germany dismembered Czechoslovakia in 1939, her town came under Hungarian rule. Over a 2-month period in May 1944, nearly 425,000 Jews were deported from Hungary to Auschwitz-Birkenau, including Irene and her family. Irene was 13 years old at the time. After 8 months of slave labor in Birkenau, Irene, her older sister, and 2 aunts were forcibly evacuated on foot from Auschwitz in January 1945 to concentration camps in Germany. In 1947, Irene, her sister, and 1 aunt immigrated to New York. She married Martin Weiss in 1949, and they moved to Northern Virginia in 1953. Irene earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in education from American University and taught in the Fairfax County school system for 13 years. She has 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. Her husband, Martin, passed away in 2013. Ms. Weiss is a volunteer and frequent speaker at the U.S. Holocaust Museum, and we welcome her.
Thank you for inviting me today to speak. When talking about the Holocaust over 80 years later, my memories are still vivid. When I reflect upon my experience, I find that I divided into 2 areas. The first, I am 13 years old and I have arrived in Auschwitz, and the sudden separation of my family on the platform in Birkenau. The second reflection is the present. At 95 years old, with the perspective of time, I am preoccupied with looking back to try to understand what happened there. What diabolical place was this, and how do I regain trust in humanity again? Auschwitz was an efficiently planned death camp, cleverly designed to rely on our normal expectations upon arrival that we were at a labor camp. It started for us in 1944 when Germany was already losing the war, but they were determined to finish the extermination of the Jews of Europe. They turned their attention to the 500,000 Jews in Hungary. At the time, I was living in a small town in Hungary with my parents, 5 siblings, and a large extended family. In the spring of 1944, Hungarian local officials announced that Jews in my town had 24 hours to leave their home with one suitcase each and assemble at the town hall. A delegation made up of the mayor, police chief, and my school principal arrived at the door demanding that we hand over all our money and valuables. Along with the other Jews in the town, we were taken to an abandoned brick factory some miles away. There, we joined hundreds of Jewish families from neighboring towns. We were kept there for about a month, sleeping on the crowded floor of the factory. In the middle of May 1944, a freight train arrived on the tracks alongside the factory. We were ordered into the train. No one told us our destination. My family struggled to stay together. We managed to get into the same cattle car along with about 80 to 100 people. A guard slammed the door, shut and bolted it from the outside. Instantly it was dark. The only air and light came from a small window on the upper corner. Hours later, the train began to move. There was a bucket for the toilet in the middle of the car. Hours passed, 2 days and a night. The bucket filled up. Peering out the window, my father confirmed our worst fear. The train was crossing into Poland. We had heard rumors of mass shootings of Jewish families in the forests in Nazi-occupied Poland. We had never heard of Auschwitz. Finally, the train stopped. There are barracks here, my father said. This must be a work camp. We were relieved. We were not going to be facing a firing squad. The doors opened and air and light rushed in. There were dogs, guards with guns, and prisoners in striped uniforms. Leave everything behind, they shouted, and get out. My mother quickly unpacked extra clothing and told us to put on more layers. My head was covered with a kerchief, and I put on an oversized winter coat. On the platform, my family reached for one another urgently, trying to stay together in the rush of people, noise, and confusion. SS guards with guns moved the huge crowd up the platform. An SS guard shouted, men to one side, women, children to the other. In an instant, my father and 16-year-old brother Moshe were lined up into a huge column of men off to one side. I never saw them again. My mother, sisters, younger brothers, and I were in another large column of women and children. Smoke billowed from a chimney in the distance. The column edged forward. When we reached the front of the line, a dozen or more armed Nazi guards blocked the way. One held a small stick. He motioned my older sister Serena, who was 17, to the one side. She moved to a different road. In the next moment, he motioned my mother and 2 little brothers to the other side, and they also disappeared from view. Only my younger sister Edith and I remained. The stick came down between us. Edith was sent in the direction that my mother went. The guard looked at me and hesitated for an instant, although I was only 13 and would have been selected with the children. My kerchief and the big coat may have made me look older. He motioned me to go in the direction of where my sister Serena went and the other young adults. And he turned his attention to the people behind me. I tried to see if my younger sister had caught up with my mother. It was not possible for me to see what happened to her in this fast-moving crowd. Our family had tried so hard to stay together. We were now completely torn apart. The trauma of this separation lingers with me to this day. Serena and I were herded into a bathhouse. We were shaved, disinfected, and handed prison clothes. We were moved to barracks with about 200 other women. We still did not know where we were. We asked the other prisoners, "When will we see our families?" A woman pointed to a chimney and said, "Do you see the smoke? There is your family." I thought, why should anyone say such things to us? By sheer luck, we discovered my mother's two sisters in a nearby barrack. Their loving devotion and help protected me and my sister in this terrifying place. In the following days, we were tattooed and sent to work near crematorium number 4 at a storage facility where we were processing all the things that people brought with them when they arrived in the trains. There were all kinds of things people brought, such as shoes, eyeglasses, toothbrushes, baby carriages, and everything else that people brought from their house, thinking they will be needing it here. We worked outdoors, day and night, to bring these belongings into the barracks out of the weather. But the trucks kept coming, bringing more and more from the platform, and even from outside the gas chamber of the people who had been killed there. We sorted the belongings to get them ready to be sent to Germany to the use of the German population. Because we worked and lived next to a gas chamber and crematorium, we had first-hand knowledge of what had happened to our families. Day and night, columns of young mothers with children and elderly passed by our barrack. We watched them enter the gate that led to the gas chambers. Sometimes they called out to us, but by then, nothing could save them. The sounds were magnified when I worked outside at night. First, I would hear the whistle of a train, and then the steam engine arriving at the platform. The people from the train at night saw the smoke and the flames belching from the chimneys and the burning of bodies in open pits. It looked to them like they were being herded into an open flame. I plugged my ears with my fingers to block out their shrieks and their prayers. Then there was silence. In the distance, I would hear the whistle of another train arriving. In January 1945, as the Russian army approached, we were forced out of Auschwitz on a death march, along with thousands of other prisoners, miles away from Auschwitz towards Germany. Anyone who fell from exhaustion or sat down to rest was shot. By the time we reached other camps in Germany, we were sick and emaciated. One of my aunts came down with typhus and was selected to be killed. My other aunt was also very ill. Soon after that, my sister Serena was also selected for death. When I realized that we were about to be separated, I said, "I am her sister." I was told, "You can go too." We were put in a room with other selected women, awaiting for a truck that would come and take us to be killed. Perhaps because of the approaching Russian front and the resulting chaos, the truck never came. Soon after that, the guards fled and the remaining survivors drifted out of the camp. From my immediate family of 8, only Serena and I survived. We never learned what happened to my 16-year-old brother Moshe. My father, who was 47 years old, was forced to work in the crematorium, pulling bodies out from the gas chamber. He was shot not long after we arrived. All 11 of my cousins perished along with their parents. When I saw children after the war, I stopped and stared at them. I had not seen children in almost a year and a half. Children were condemned to death in the world I had just come from. It is painful to talk about what happened, but it is unthinkable that it should not be told. And with the years passing, I find it more urgent to tell. When I speak about the Holocaust, I am again 16 years old, who was certain that no one knew that such a place existed, where trains deliver thousands of Jewish families each day for one purpose only, to be killed. The Nazis considered us subhuman, and they disassociated themselves from our common humanity. Among the many laws enacted by the Nazis against the Jews, one of the laws was to prevent Jews from contaminating their superior Nazi race. It is difficult to explain the terror one feels when being treated as a subhuman by another human being. As a 13-year-old, I was also certain that if I survived and told what happened here, it would put an end to anti-Semitism forever. But as you know, that did not happen. Not only is anti-Semitism alive, but there are those who deny and distort the reality of the Holocaust. The details of distortion of Holocaust survivors give survivors anxiety and pain, the fear that it can happen again, even in this country. It is crucial that you ensure that the truth is known about this tragic period in our history, and that the rule of law and protection of human rights is upheld in this country and worldwide. Thank you for listening to me.
If you are able, please rise and let's recite the special Mourner's Kaddish together. Yitgadal, Auschwitz, Birkenau, Buna, Baranovka, Bergen-Belsen, V'yitkadash, Belzec, Bialystok, Babi-Yar, Shemei Rabbah, Bochnia, Bogdanovka, Buchenwald, Be'alma, Divra, Chirute, Chelmno, Krakow, Dachau, V'yamlich Malchute, Dakovo, Danica, Dora, Bechayechon, Uvyomechon, Dumanovka, Ebensi, Edineti, Flossenberg, Uvechaye, Dechol Beit Israel, Gross Rosen, Gunskirchen, Gers, Bagala, Uvizman, Kariv, Herzengenbusch, Lassi, Yadovno, Kaiserwald, Ve'imru, Amen, Yehe Shmei Rabba Mivarach, Le'olam Olmei Olmaya, Yitbarach Ve'yishtabach, Kamenetz Podolsky, Kishinev, Kovno, Kluga, Ve'yitpa'ar, Ve'yitromam, Lodz, Lubin, Lublin, Lvov, Lyons, Ve'yitnaseh, Ve'yithadar, Majdanek, Mauthausen, Minsk, Natzweiler, Struthof, Neuengameria, Vayit Ale, Vayit Halal, Ordruf, Plashov, Papenburg, Ponari, Shemei de Kudasha, Brichu, Prague, Radom, Ravensbrück, Remsdorf, Riga, Le'ela, Sachsensburg, Sachsenshausen, San Saba, Shauliyai, Minkol Birchata Veshirata, Skarisko Kaminiana, Sobibor, Tushbechata Venechemata, Theresienstadt, Transnistria, Treblinka, Vaivara, Da'amiran Be'alma, Vilna, Warsaw, Zemun, Zhytomyr, Ve'imru, Amen. Yehei Shloma Rabba Min Shemaya, Ve'chaim Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen.
Please join me, if you're able, for the partisan hymn. Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst am letzten Weg, Gott Himmeln bleiene, verstellen bleie Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau, es wird erpeugt und unser Trott mir seinen Do. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau, es wird erpeugt und unser Trott mir seinen Do. Never say this is the final road for you, though leaden skies may cover over days of blue. As the hour that we long for is so near, our steps speed out the message we are here. As the hour that we long for is so near, our steps speed out the message we are here. The early morning sun will brighten our day, and yesterday with our foe will fade away. But if the sun delays and in the east remains, This song as password generations must maintain. But if the sun delays and the east remains, this song as password generations must maintain. Therefore, never say the road now ends for you, though leaden skies may cover over days of blue. As the hour that we longed for is so near, our steps speed out the message, we are here. As the hour that we longed for is so near, our steps speed out the message, we are here.
Good afternoon. Once again, annually, we gather at our Yom HaShoah commemoration and pause to remember the 6 million murdered by the Nazis, marvel at the incredible strength of the survivors, and reaffirm our collective commitment to never forget the horrors of the Shoah. Every year that survivors like Irene join us, and I loved listening to every word, Irene, and share their powerful words is a blessing. Preserving their legacy is the JCRC's most sacred responsibility, which we do all year round. Everyone in this room has a vital role to play in this effort, and we encourage you to participate in our agency's efforts to fulfill that mission. It is impossible to ignore the reality that Israel has been at war for almost 2.5 years, and anti-Semitism has grown exponentially here in our own nation. Approximately 70% of all U.S.-based religious-based hate crimes target Jews, who only constitute 1.8% of the population. And let's be honest, we're all struggling every day with that reality. It's easy to become concerned, anxious, and fearful. But I'm here today, to tell you to be confident that the American Jewish community will be fine, and our people will emerge stronger, prouder, and more committed to our faith than ever before. Witnessing the determination of the survivors and leaning on our traditions and the history of our people should be sources of inspiration for a positive and confident future. But don't be a bystander. Get involved and help us shape the Jewish future. We, nobody else, can shape our own future. But before we conclude with Hatikvah, I want to extend thanks to a host of people and groups who made today's events possible. Mandy Book and Sarah Winkleman of the JCRC staff, and the rest of my colleagues who worked endlessly to coordinate today's program. Our hosts at the Northern Virginia Community College and here at the Richard Ernst Community Cultural Center, particularly Marlene Laws and Deborah Deegan, thank you. All the members of the JCRC Holocaust Commission who are dedicated to making this event meaningful, and especially to our co-chairs, Dr. Ron Paul, Ellen Blaylock, I see you, Ellen, Ira Bartfield, and Al Bloomfield. Our chief synagogue sponsors, Congregation Olam Tikva, thank you, Rabbi Callender, and Shaarei Tefillah in Olney, Maryland, thank you, Rabbi Lehman. Institutional partners, the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington for their leadership and year-round support, the Posers JCC of Northern Virginia, thank you, Jeff. And JESA, which supports more than 300 Holocaust survivors throughout the year through the Holocaust Survivors Program. Thank you, Todd, for being here. Everyone with a role in today's program, Irene Fogel-Weiss. I don't know you very well, but I know your daughter in the professional world for over 30 years, and now I see where she gets it from. To our candlelighters, pledge leaders, musical performers, and rabbis, and the elected officials and students who participated into the Unto Every Person There Is a Name video. And finally, I would like to thank the JCRC Board of Directors and our activists for their passion and commission, and to our donors who make this event and all of our other programming possible. Thank you for being here today. If you can, please rise and join the Poses JCC Community Choir, Ma'kelah, for the singing of Hatikvah.